And then the second question really is how would you say high performance, and what makes high performance?
Probably, ultimately, it just comes down to, well, there's a few things, but hard work. I haven't met anyone yet who's got to the top without, in anything they've done, without a lot of hard work. It's boring to say. It's like the thing, and it's gone to the added bits away from what people see. So as I mentioned there, I was at about 14 and 15. I went running twice a week before school. I went swimming twice a week before school, only just to get fitter. That was the only purpose to do it, not for any other class or club. It's just me trying to get fitter. So it was kind of an example from, I suppose, from my career, that the hard work is kind of like a given. Like, you have to work hard on the bloke next to you. That's kind of my mentality. If I worked hard on the bloke next to me in the change room, I knew that I'd always be like one step ahead, and that is one of the main ingredients for high elite sport.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And then obviously you were really privileged to go and represent England and take that honour of being the captain. In the England team and in the teams you played, what would you define as culture, and what behaviours to you are really, really important?
Yeah, I mean, the culture is a really interesting one, because you spend quite a lot of time on the psychology of that. You're talking about what is the team, how do you want the team to operate in certain things. We had a thing called a player charter, where the players made the rules. And sometimes it felt authentic. Certain teams it felt authentic. Certain teams it felt forced. Depending on what it was. We spent quite a lot of time doing it, I suppose. Talking about it actually. And the good examples I got it. The one at Essex now. It's a great culture in terms of a lot of the guys are young Essex. They're kind of two groups. You've got a young Essex players and some slightly older ones who have been around the club for a while, and we never once mentioned culture. But you are not expected, but you want to turn up for the team socials. You want to kind of put in for the club. If they ask you to do, say, a sponsor thing, it's kind of like that is what's happened in the past. You're kind of carrying on that tradition. I suppose on the England side, there's a lot. I mean, because you're bringing lots of different people in from different, age groups, different backgrounds, different times. And someone might play for 2 games, someone might play 100 games, and it's a kind of this revolving door where obviously the Essex is obviously a bit more set aside. And like the bit which I was enforcing when I was there was, when you become an England player, you're an England player 24/7. You're an England player not just when you've got the tracksuit on, not just when you're training with the England side or you got the hat on. It's everyday life. You are representing England for the rest of your life as an England player, and I think you had a duty to kind of act in a certain way, and certain decisions you make are vital. Kind of that was kind of like would people want people to see that, and that's kind of what I kind of try to push. And the 24/7 England player, and I think it went down quite well because it's quite an easy thing to kind of just talk about and act, really.
Yeah, that's good. And then, in terms of your role as captain, how did you go about impacting other people around you?
Yeah, I mean, you're asking some really questions which I could go on for like days about, but ultimately, as a captain of the cricket team, I was, you've got to be able to be a tactician, you've got to be a shoulder to cry on, you've got to be a support bubble for certain players. Sometimes you've got to be, the hard taskmaster, because it's not like a football captain or rugby captain. There's a lot of responsibility with kind of decisions you are making as an England captain on the field, off the field. You get quite a lot of responsibility. So it's quite hard to say what you did. It was a great job, because not only were you captaining your country, which is a huge honour, but you didn't quite know what was going to throw at you every single day. It was a brilliant job. It was hard work. But yeah, impacting play was the better you know someone. This is going to really cliche. It's not. The better you know someone, the more advice you can give them, because you know how, what makes them tick and how they operate. So someone like obviously James Anderson and Stuart Broad, who I played a lot of cricket with. It's quite easy to try and you can see what mood they're in, or you see how they respond to certain things. Certain players respond. You get the best out of them by putting an arm around the shoulder. Certain players would want, a bit more forthright feedback. So you got to be right, and you also got to pick your moments as well.
Yeah, that's good. Just in terms of you personally, who's influenced you the most and why?
It's a really good question. I suppose the person who's influenced me most would have to be Graham Gooch. Probably the guy sitting there probably don't really know who he is, but the slightly older generation. He was kind of like the opening batsman before the generation before, and he obviously an Essex player, Essex captain and legend as well. And yeah, so he was the one who kind of took me under his wing at 18 when I first joined the staff at Essex. He was there. He was my hero as a youngster, and it's quite strange when you meet your hero. And then he became my mentor. He was the guy who'd be throwing balls at me at 7 a.m. for a couple of hours, and he'll be the person I'll talk a lot of cricket to. And to have someone who played for Essex, played in your position, opened the batting, played for England, and had kind of done their career, and you're kind of following exactly the same footsteps. You couldn't have had a better teacher, really. You couldn't have bloke to kind of pick the brains off. And for probably over 8 or 9 years, we had a brilliant working relationship on that side. And how lucky was I to have someone as good as that in my corner.
Yeah, no, amazing. Two questions for me, and then it's over to the kids. Out of all your accomplishments, I'll put the teeth in. What are you most proud of, and why? And I guess that could be many.
I think being part of just a successful team. There's some great players who haven't been part of a successful England team, and we played in a generation which won a lot of games of cricket. We had some tough times along the way, but we had some memories which no one will ever take away from us. Winning in Australia, first time in 20 odd years, becoming number one side in the world, winning in India, winning in South Africa, all these places which doesn't happen very often. I was part of that, and it's probably a bit more luck than judgment in some of the stuff about you can't pick your teammates. So for me to have played, I think, alongside some of England's greatest ever players, you're looking at James Anderson. I mentioned him for 600 wickets, Stuart Broad 500 wickets. Now these guys are going down in absolute folklore. So to played with them for over 100 times, that's probably what is my biggest thing. I've sat in the change room winning more games of cricket. I think James Anderson's just gone past me, but than any other person. That is, that's a good thing to say.
Oh, good. And then final one for me is, what are your 3 non-negotiable behaviours?
Ooh. One would have to be hard work. There's absolutely no. If you want to get to be elite, that has to be, or be part of a thing that is a non-negotiable. The second one, I mean, it's that the problem is you come out with cliches, and you kind of. I think one of them would probably be yourself, because if you're not yourself and you're acting to be someone else, it doesn't work. It doesn't work in the team. It doesn't work. It might work for a week or so, but eventually the cracks will come. So to be yourself. And the third one, I don't know, because you can get quite complicated. You start going down the honesty route, it becomes a little bit tricky. And I say that for one reason, because as a captain here, so someone says you got to be honest in teams and stuff. That's fine. Of course you do. You want people to be open and honest. But say as a captain, you go to a bowler the day before a game. I'm sorry, we're not playing you in the next game, and they ask you why. When you say, well, actually, you're not bowling as well as I'd like you to do. You're not quite doing that, obviously, what you should be doing. I mean, you tell him that straight, that is, that's all honest, it's all good. But then say that there's an injury the next day and he's then back in the side, and then you told him honestly your feedback, then, you can he's then thinking, well, you don't rate me. So it's a strange one. Obviously, there are absolutely times of certain feedback. So I can't actually say a non-negotiable third one without really thinking about it and giving it a bit of time.
Okay. No, that's good. That's awesome. Thanks so much for that. Right then, we've got the exciting.
Hello, my name is Harry, and my question is, who's the quickest bowler you have ever faced?
Oh, good question, Harry. The quickest bowler I faced was a guy called Sean Tate. Can anyone remember Sean Tate? He probably played us a little bit before your time. He actually played at Essex, and he's got a nickname, which if I could just remember what it was, it gives you a thing, but I can't actually remember. But he bowled a ball at me at 157 k's an hour, which is just under 100 miles an hour. It's about 98 miles an hour. And that was as quick as ball as I've ever faced. And the quickest spells of bowling would have been Mitchell Johnson 2013-14 when he bowled brilliantly for the whole series and we lost 5-0. But yeah, that when it gets above 90, 92, 93, you know, it's whistling down you. And if you ever want to have a bit of fun, put the bowling machine on 90 mile an hour and just don't try and hit it, but try and stand next to it and just see how quick it comes. And that'll give you a slight indication of what we have to deal with when they bowl that fast.
Cool. You broke up there, Alistair. So who was that? Sorry, who was your fastest bowler?
Oh, sorry, a guy called Sean Tate.
Okay.
Sean Tate. He bowled. I'm trying to just Google his nickname here quickly. He bowled one at 157 an hour.
Wow.
Which is just under it's about 98 miles an hour, which is quick enough for anyone. So yeah. I'm just Googling to see he's got quite a good nickname, but struggling to get on. There we go. Yeah, so Sean Tate, have you got me now? Am I cut up or not?
Cool. Well, yeah, we'll Google that ourselves, but brilliant.
The Wild Thing, that was his nickname, The Wild Thing.
The Wild Thing, fantastic. Right, next one. You aren't seeing double vision. We've got two twins in the room at the moment. So introduce yourself and then ask your question.
Hello, my name is Archie, and my question is, how many bats have you broken from hitting the ball so hard?
Have my bat ever broken?
Or how many bats?
Oh, good question. I mean, everyone who knows watched me play knows I don't whack it that much, but I reckon I've probably broken 30, 35 bats, 40, I'd say. I mean, the most I tell you what most happens now, because you know how big the bats are. The bats are really big, and obviously with this has got through Gray Nichols, and they make brilliant bats, so it's nothing to do with their bats, but to get the wood as big as it is, they have to dry it out quite a lot. So dry it out, it makes them, there's less moisture in it, so they're big but light, and they break quite a lot. And what tends to happen is you use them for a little bit, and then they break. If you hit one right at the end of the toe, because there's so much force going through it, it breaks. But they normally break straight away. So like if you get, I've had a couple of net sessions where I brought a brand new bat out and thinking, oh, this is fantastic. Look how good it is. I can't wait to use it. You play 2 or 3 shots, and then just for whatever reason, it just goes. It's like cracks in the toe. And unfortunately, you have to kind of put it away. But yeah, we are lucky. We kind of get sent a few. Every year I'd probably go through about 10 bats maybe. So I'd have 5 at the start of the summer and then 5 for the winter. That would be kind of my thing. So 10 bats a year. So I've been with Gray Nichols since I was professionally 18. Well, I started when I was 13 with Gray Nichols. So I'm 35. I'm just 22 years. I probably had 10 bats for 10 of those years. That's 100 bats, probably about 140 bats of Gray Nichols, 150 bats I reckon I've had.
Wow. How many have you had? 2.
Who do you use? Who do you use? What's your bat?
Gray Nichols Oblivion Stealth.
Ah, good man. Good man. You've chosen the right one.
Well done, Archie.
Top man. Brilliant. Okay, Henry, do you want to come up?
Hi, I'm Henry, and my question is, which game have you learned the most from and why?
Which game?
Yeah, who you played?
Jeez. What game have I? Do you know the biggest? There's probably. Okay, the biggest thing I ever learned in the whole of this thing. So when I played against Australia twice when I was quite young. One in 2006, we lost 5-0, and then one in 2009, and. No, we won in 2009. I did okay. I got a 90 odd laws, but I think I averaged probably 30, so I didn't do great. Both times I averaged, I think 20 odd in the 27, but I got 100 at Perth when I was 21, and then 30 against us there in that series. And so twice I played against Australia when I was young, and every other team I did pretty well against, except Australia. And then I tried to totally change my technique. So I spent hours with Gucci trying to change my technique, thinking, against a real elite level, that my technique, which I previously had, wasn't good enough. And I did it for about 6 months. And I scored a couple of test hundreds with it, scored some one-day runs. And then in 2010, I played against Pakistan. The ball nipped all over, and I just couldn't go out run. I was all rigid, and because it's a bit unusual, a bit unnatural, my technique, my kind of a new technique, I Yeah, I binned it mid of a test match. I went back to the old technique at the Oval, and I got 100. And what that proved to me is that you've got to keep trying to learn. You've got to keep trying to improve. But sometimes what you actually been given, God given, or your natural way, you've got to stick by it, thick and thin. But without doing that little journey of 8 months of exploring, I wouldn't have known that. So that was the biggest lesson. So since then, I never really changed my technique since 2010. I kind of stuck with the same one, but just kept trying to improve it rather than make a huge change. It's just trying to groove it and try and make those skills a bit better.
Thank you.
Cool.
All right.
Good stuff. Right. Come on, Hal. Sorry. Can you come, Beatty? Come on, go. Introduce yourself. Big moment. She's very excited about this. Come here so you can see.
My question is, if you could go back in time to when you first started cricket, what advice would you give to yourself?
Oh, it's a really good question. I'd probably learn the T20 game a bit more, judging about what's happened in the game since I've started, with the old financial benefits of playing T20 in the franchises. But do you know what I would if I was trying to teach, like if I was someone who's young, who's loving the game now, it would be quite a boring message. It would be it would definitely say keep enjoying everything you do, push the boundaries of see what you can achieve, like try and take that bit of fear of failure away from it. Like in a net session, I used to hate getting out. I used to hate getting out sometimes in a net session. Sometimes they're perfect net sessions. You've got to be really switched on, but explore your game. Like try and push the boundaries because you just never know what you could achieve. Maybe I was a little bit kind of subdued in pushing those boundaries as a player, but that's maybe what I'd say. But ultimately, enjoy it. It's a great game, and don't take it too seriously. I think because unfortunately, game of cricket, you fail, don't you? How many times you get out for low scores? You know, I played 160 odd test matches. I only got 30 odd hundreds. So for the other 120 odd test matches, I was rubbish. So you got to think, you got to just be able to accept that and deal with it.
Cool. Right, next up.
It's like walking the gauntlet, isn't it?
My name is Adam, and I would ask, when you're out of nick, what would you do?
Okay, I get asked this quite a lot, and there is no golden ticket to the answer, right? So a lot of people think, oh, I'm out of nick, I've got to change this, I've got to change that. You kind of do a massive circle and you keep searching for the next ticket. The trick of trying to get back into form quicker than you can, because you remember form is a very strange thing. It comes and goes, and it's only natural. Even the greatest players in the whole history of ever played never ever just constantly score runs. So for me, it was all about going back to what I did simply. So do you know what I mean? When I say simply, so I'd have 3 things on my checklist. Firstly would be my head position. As a left-hander, was I falling over the ball? Do you understand what that means? If like my head goes a little bit like that, you hit it and your head's going there. That's one. Am I moving my weight? The next thing, am I moving my weight forward and back? So am I getting my weight into the ball when it's full? Am I getting my weight back when it's short? And thirdly, can I hit the ball straight? They're my 3 things in the checklist, right? Because if you can do that, then everything else will take care of itself. Your cut shot, your pull shot, they'll all happen with a bit of time. So it'll be right. I'm going to groove that quickly. I'm going to groove that for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. If I can do that, then I know my game is in pretty good order. And then when you get out in the middle, it's about trying just to survive. This is my method. This might be someone else. Someone else might have a different method. My method would say, right, I'm just going to try and bat for half an hour here. I'm not going to worry about my runs. I'm not going to worry about where I score my runs. I'm not going to worry about my feet, my head. I'm just going to try and survive for half an hour and try and get that rhythm back, because that's what it is. When you're out of form, you're just losing that rhythm. So trying to just keep it as simple as that and just trying to face the one ball at a time and trying to get all those negative thoughts about, the bloke on your shoulder saying, cool, you haven't scored runs for a while. Cool, this bowler's too quick for me. All that kind of stuff which happens. Try and ignore those, though they're always going to be there. Try and ignore them and just focus on the ball. That's kind of a way of trying to get back to form quickly. It doesn't always happen because that's what cricket's about. The comes and goes in form. But if you can that was my checklist. If I knew my checklists were good, I could go to bed that night going, well, actually, my game's okay. It's just a bit of time in the middle.
Cool. Is that all good? Well, okay, next question. How have we come? We've got a one-way system around.
I was going to say,
here.
look like they only have 3 children in the class. They just keep going and pulling them out.
Hello,
Hiya.
my name is Finn, and my question is, do you think you would have benefited more from playing T20 netball internationals for England, as you only played 4, and do you wish that you would have also played IPL and huge franchises like that?
Do you know what? I have very, very little regrets about my career. Do I wish I explored it? Maybe I do. Maybe I don't. I don't really know the answer to that question because do you know what? I had one hell of a go. And going to see the IPL looks fantastic. Obviously, I haven't been there. I've only ever watched it on TV. And maybe I could have explored my game a lot. But do you know what? For me, the pinnacle of my cricket was always Test cricket. Maybe because it suited my game more. Maybe because more naturally I was a slower pace player, so I found it easier. But the satisfaction I got from winning a one-day game or a Test match was just no comparison. The satisfaction you sat after 5 days of hard work, and the test of a T20 of a Test match is unbelievable. You test mentally, you test physically, you test skill-wise. Every situation is different, and for me that was the complete test of cricket. And I love watching T20. I do love it. But it doesn't, to me, it just tests the cricket in 2 ways. How you can, how far can you hit the ball and how many times you hit it out of the park. And as a bowler, a bit of luck you need. Are your skills good enough there? And you need a lot of luck. Test cricket, there's no luck really involved. You get found out in 5 days. The best side normally wins. So I prefer that kind of cricket. So I'm a bit of a traditionalist on that.
Yeah. Are you in South Africa at the moment?
No, I'm actually in Bedfordshire. I'm in Bedfordshire. Do you know what I was doing today? You'll never believe it.
What?
We have turkeys down the farm, so we had
You
to.
live on the farm, don't you?
Yeah, we had to move turkeys from one yard to another. And if you ever try to move turkeys from one yard to another, you'll know they don't move very quickly. So that was what I was doing a bit today.
You said that it was actually harder being on a farm than actually scoring Test runs.
Yeah, I know. It is. It's hard work on the farm. Electric fencing, moving sheep, lambing sheep. Cricket's easy. You get to stay in nice hotels. You're not out in the cold. This morning, how cold is it?
It's very cold.
Exactly. I was out and about, checking the sheep.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good.
And P.S. I like grey knickers, but I have the Stokes back.
Pardon?
I have Stokes back, not the grey knickers one, but I do like the grey knickers.
Sorry, I don't. What bat do you use?
Ben Stokes is the GM.
Oh, Stokesy's the Gunner Moore.
Yeah.
We'll let you off just this once. Next one, you have to have a grey nickel.
We'll convert into grey nickels, don't worry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Alistair, we've got our last question. This is from our head of cricket development, Mr. Longshaw.
Hi, okay.
Hello, sir.
The final one for me, I guess something for the kids to take away would be if you've got a sort of a go-to drill that you could do either at home or at the club or anything like that. Obviously, potentially outside if you're at home, you don't want to break any windows or anything like that. What would your sort of one go-to drill be, you think?
Do you know the go-to one would be a drop feed? Do you know what I mean? Someone standing right in front of you and dropping the ball, one bounce, and then you can play any shot really, any front foot shot to it, can't you? Yeah. So Gucci, there's a great picture of me, like Gucci standing next to me, just dropping the ball. Full England kits. I was an England player, and it's such a simple thing, isn't it? Like, can you hit the ball exactly where you want to go and straight? You can sweep it, you can go extra cover drive, and it just like as a cricketer, like a golfer would absolutely. He has a swing coach, he has a putting coach. Technically, he's absolutely precise on it, and cricket's not quite got that same thing to it. But if your technique is so solid for your game, it can only help. So I am convinced that drilling basics and grooving basics is so important. I know every kid wants to go and play the reverse sweep and hit over the top. Of course you can. You've got to be able to walk before you can run, and you can only play those shots if you've got good bases. You've got your head's in the right position. So I would be literally stripping every kid's technique down to, can you hit the ball straight back where it comes from for the first 10 minutes almost every session? Because if you can groove that, then you can go on to play the reverse sweeps because you know you've got some really good, solid basics to kind of move on from and work from.
Okay, thank you very much.
Awesome. What's on your wish list for Christmas?
Oh, well, actually, I've got a few of my things. It's my birthday as well. I'm a Christmas Day birthday, so
Oh, fantastic!
so I get it has to be birthday in the morning and Christmas in the afternoon.
You get double presents.
Wow, I used to get quite a lot of joint presents, happy birthday and Christmas, which I thought I was a bit hard done by. A wish list. I don't really. Do you know what? I've got a ripped coat, so I want like a nice smart coat, which hasn't got a rip in it because I ripped it. I caught it on something the other day, so.
When you were batting, where would fast bowlers normally bowl at you?
Most times they would bowl for me just outside off stump, trying to bring me forward. In the corridors on service. I was a strong cutter, was a strong puller, and was quite strong off my legs. My biggest weakness was on that fourth stump, just trying to get my weight back into the ball. So earlier I was saying I'd be drilling myself to get my weight back into the ball. I struggled to do that. My front leg was could often be a little bit too straight, so my weight would be slightly too further back. So that'd where a fast bowler would try and bowl on, try and bring me forward, try and make me play cover drive. But obviously there's margins of errors, and if you get too forward, I will put you away, and obviously if they drag it down a little bit, I'll cut you. So they didn't have too much margin for error, but that was where if people bowled there, I'd find it hard to score.
Cool. Brilliant. We won't take any more of your time. I know you.
No. I've got. Do you know what? I do have 10 more minutes, so it's fine.
You sure?
I quite easy. We started a bit early, so I'm all right.
Right, brilliant. I think the kids have got more
Keep
questions.
going. Keep everyone telling birthdays.
Come on then, out you come. Okay, so if you just turn the light on so we get some light here. Thanks.
What was your proudest innings you ever played in?
Ooh, good question. Probably my 235 in Australia at Brisbane in 2010. So if anyone remembers that game, we were the first game obviously at Brisbane where Australia haven't lost for a long time. They always go to Australia because they always think they're going to win, or go to Brisbane because they always think they're going to win. We got 270. Peter Siddle actually got a hat trick, and then they got 480 odd. So that we were 217, I think, behind and staring down the barrel of a kind of defeat at the end of day 3. And I managed to get a double 100. Jonathan Trott got 100. We put on 380, I think, for the second wicket. And Strauss got 100 as well. So the top 3 got 100. We were 517 for 1. And we saved that game. So that's probably my proudest innings. Yeah.
Cool. Does that answer it?
Yeah.
Amazing. Right, Bates, come out. You come.
If you didn't play cricket, what would you do?
Wow. Now I'd be a farmer. So I've married into my wife's a farmer and her family a farmer. So I would be a farmer. And actually I've just applied to do my lorry license.
Oh, cool.
This winter. So Alice can drive the sheep around in a lorry, but it's about time I learnt to do it. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I can get it done in February. Then I'll be a proper lorry driver, proper farmer.
Fantastic. That's a good one. Yeah, how you come?
Are there any spinners whose variations you can't pick?
Oh, yes, there are. Well, actually, I'll tell you what, I struggled to pick the ball out of the hand. Okay, so you know how some people said, oh, like you pick a leg spinner like this, or when a googly, you can see more of the hand, and yes, you can do. But I struggled to do that as well as certain people. I just tended to watch the ball. So when the ball come down, like even Mullarathnam, one of the greatest ever spinners, like you could watch the ball come down, so you could see which way it spun. It became a little bit harder when the ball got a bit older and they bowled cross seam, they hold it scrambled seams. So that became a bit harder, but you can see the ball like that. So as a batsman, like my thing would be watch the hand. If you see something unusual, think, well, it could be something different. Then as the ball comes down, you'll be able to like pick the ball. So use everything you can when you're playing. So don't just think I could look at the hand. You have to think of everything. And then if certain bowlers, for example, say a leg spinner bowls a googly, he might drop his shoulder. He might to be able to goal the googly. He might drop his shoulder a bit earlier, and you just suddenly see it. I feel like a bowler bowling a bouncer at you. Like he might run in a bit faster. You know, he might do something differently you pick up clues. So as a batsman, really focus on as soon as he starts his run up, about halfway through his run up, start focusing on what he does, because they give you so many clues of what they're doing, and if you pick up any of those clues, it can only help.
I wonder if he must have been hard because he had such an odd action, and he still got the most wickets ever.
Yeah, he did. Thank God he didn't have DRS when he played, because he would have got a lot more wickets. But he was very hard. I played him okay actually when I played against him. I got a couple of hundreds, so I managed to play him okay. But he was very, very hard work because he could spin the ball this much. It became very hard.
Did you ever face Shane Warne?
I did face Shane Warne. I didn't face him very much because Glenn McGrath and Stuart Clark got me out before that in the 2006 series. That's the first time. But I did actually. I got 100 against him. So yeah.
Yeah, because I've just learned. I'm a leg spinner as well, and I've just learned to bowl the googly, and I'm trying to make it less obvious in your action.
Yeah, but I don't think you need at this age. If I was you, I'd be all. I mean, I know very little about spin bowling. Keep trying to spin it as hard as you can.
Yeah, and just get the runs as well.
Yeah.
It must also be cool because you're called Chef as well, aren't you? Your nickname.
I'm called Chef.
And it's my
Any idea why?
Pardon?
Why? Any idea why?
No.
What's my surname?
I see. Thank you.
Brilliant.
All right.
I've got a quick one for you, Alistair, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Did you play any other sports at school, and were you any good?
So I played rugby. I played squash. I stopped rugby at 16. I didn't really go through puberty until I was 16, so it wasn't actually much fun when you can still sing the choir high notes and the bloke with a full beard trying to run at you. So I didn't. But I love it now. I'd played rugby now more, but I played a lot of squash. So squash was a game. I became half decent at squash, but now darts. I like my darts, like go-karting. I'll try anything. Play a bit of tennis, but so I did play a lot. Basically, when I was younger, I played everything.
Who's your football team, Alistair?
Luton Town.
Oh, fantastic! Kenilworth Road.
Kenilworth Road. Mid-table championship. We'll take it at the moment. When I started, I remember going to watch them when they're out of the conference. So we had back-to-back promotions a couple of years ago. So doing okay.
Yeah, no, really good. Henry, go for it.
How do you feel when you're on 90 odd runs and you think you're going to get 100, and how do you control yourself from just trying to whack the ball?
Well, it's a good question because actually, although I scored the most hundreds, I've also got the most 90s. So I've actually been dismissed a hell of a lot of times in the 90s. And it's incredibly frustrating, even though it shouldn't really matter because you'll take 90 every time you batted. But the trick is to try, if you can, is just to ignore the milestone. And now that's easier said than done because it's there. It's what you get defined as in the batsman. You want to score 100. But yeah, you've just got to try and just ignore the bloke on the shoulder, and try and trust yourself that you will get those extra runs. And if it takes you a bit longer, then it does. Sometimes you fly through it. Look, I had an example, massive one, which annoys me quite a lot. Was I never got 100 against Australia in England. I got about 3. I got an 87, 89, and 95, and 96. And that 96. I got out. Mitchell Marsh bowled me just before the new ball, and I'd been grinding away. And I was thinking, let's get my 100 before the new ball. Went for a big drive. I got inside out, dragged it on at Lords, and I was thinking about the new ball, so I was changed my game for it. And then when the second innings came on, Mitchell bowled me the first ball of the innings. He bowled me leg stump half volley, and I clipped it for 4. And it just shows, the new ball, although it wouldn't have made any difference. I could have got a Jaffa, but I could have also got a ball to get me going as well. So it just shows that even though how experienced I was there, I played 130, 140 test matches. I was still inexperienced. Well, I still messed up looking for the 100. If you can, try and ignore the bloke on the shoulder and just play everything. You could go to 90 in 3 shots, or it could take you half an hour.
Cool. Right, last one then. Go on, Bates. You can have one more.
Have you ever been told told that you wouldn't be able to like play cricket professionally?
I was told. No, I was never told that I wasn't. But at 16, 17, I suppose even at 18, I had my doubts. You know, I scored a lot of runs at school, but every time I went back to say play S6 under 17, dress 6 under 19s or second team, and I was thinking I never scored any runs. I literally didn't. I think my highest score was 27 for a couple of years, and now I played probably 4 or 5 games a year in the summer holidays. So yeah, when you're doing that, you think, God, I wouldn't be good enough, but I managed to just get through that stage. What drove me was that fear of failure. That I never thought I was good enough, so I was always pushing hard. I was always trying to get better, and I always thought that I wasn't going to be good enough for the next level, but I somehow managed to do okay.
Well, awesome. Right, thank you very much for that. I know you've got another one next, so we'll give you time for a little bit of a breather. But yeah, thanks so much. Hope you have an awesome Christmas.